stunned, like the rest of the country is, by last night's developments, the release of the Hur Report, the president's really kind of scary press conference. And my three conclusions are he should resign. If he doesn't resign, Speaker Johnson and the House GOP should impeach him and send that over to the Senate to see what they do with it. And I understand Kamala Harris is never going to win the spelling bee, but the commander-in-chief has to be able to intake info and remember it. Ben Domenech joins me. He is editor-at-large of The Spectator. He is also, of course, the Fox News contributor with whom I enjoy spending time in green rooms. Ben, your reaction?
Well, Hugh, I think that was really a momentous day in this presidency. I mean, I think that no one's going to look back on this presidency without remembering it, just in the sense that, you have so many things happening in the day that are bad for the Biden reelection effort. And we can get into the Supreme Court stuff as well. But to me, it was absolute political malpractice for whoever said to the president, you should go out there and have this late night angry press conference, because to me, that added visual evidence to the black and white evidence that we saw within the Hur report in an immediate way, in the immediate aftermath of this report. And you could have had this footage from earlier in the day when he was out in Leesburg in Virginia talking to Democrats, where he was saying, look, I'm vindicated because they're not going to prosecute me, and I cooperated and Trump didn't, et cetera. And you could have potentially had, some kind of moving on from this. People want to talk about on the Democrat side, how the economy is improving and things are going to get better, and that's really what matters to voters in terms of the end of the day. Well, it also matters to voters at the end of the day whether the president can function or not. And if the takeaway from the Hur report was that he is a feeble-minded elderly man who cannot remember, even the dates of his own vice presidency, or even within years of when his own son passed, and really just can't keep track of anything, and that's the reason not to prosecute. You can't really turn around and make the case for his reelection. And when you have the last comment out of this White House being him confusing the presidents of Egypt and Mexico, it's just absolutely bonkers that they did that at the end of the day. And I'm stunned by the fact that we have even gotten to this point where there's still people who deny that this is a problem. I mean, Hugh, I understand partisanship, but this is obviously a problem for them and a problem for the country, and it's a problem with independent voters. It's not something that's going to go away, and they really have not found a message to get around it. And this morning, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but Joe Scarborough is just attacking Robert Hur and saying that this is Trump-like ramblings, attacking Joe Biden, that they have no place in the report. And, of course, they have to be in there because they're the justification for why they're not prosecuting him.
And, by the way, good former prosecutor who now runs a Cuban hot dog stand in a driving range in Florida, former prosecutor, said, of course you prosecute him. His mental incapacity goes to the sentencing, not to the crime for which he had mens rea at the time. But, Ben, I don't think we can wait a year. Our enemies read it, too. I don't think you would not let him skipper a single ship, no matter how small. You wouldn't let him fly a plane, no matter how expendable. You certainly wouldn't put him in charge of a platoon, even one that's just in basic training. You wouldn't let him do a thing. He's the commander-in-chief. He can't stay there.
Yeah, and I think that this is the point where, and I agree with you, by the way, about your analysis of what the Republicans in Congress need to do. This is a situation that is absolutely untenable. You know the state that the world is in at the moment. You see the way that things are really on edge all around the world in so many different ways. This next period of this presidency is going to be extremely difficult. The next year is going to be very difficult. We can't have a guy in charge, at least on paper, who just can't function. Can't fulfill the basic obligations in order to do the basic things that this job requires. And I think that it's sad that it's even gotten to this point. And very clear to me, by the way, that whoever told him that he ought to run in the first place, whoever told him that he ought to run again, they really were doing a disservice to the man and to the country. I think that Democrats have really, not covered themselves in glory in the way that they've spun for him. And anyone who goes out there spinning for him after this report and after what happened yesterday, they really are beyond the pale in terms of partisan blinders that are preventing them from seeing how much damage this country is suffering and how much risk they are keeping on every hour that he still occupies that office.
Now, Ben, I know a lot of people are going to say, but that means President Kamala Harris. I understand that. Kamala Harris is never going to win the spelling bee. She's not. but she will retain whatever information her senior military and political advisor give her. She'll make wrong decisions, but she'll understand and retain it. People don't. This is the take away the car keys moment. And there is no getting around this. It should be the only story 24/7. It's going to be the only story. I'm glad I'm going first because for the next 72 hours, it's all people are going to talk about. And probably for week after week after week. He's not competent, Ben.
He just reminded me of one of my favorite old Jack Handy deep thoughts. I hope I die like my grandfather did, peacefully in his sleep, not like the people who died screaming in his car.
Yeah.
And that's the American people. That's where we are right now. And I think that, we look at this moment and we have to reflect on the fact that, the extreme nature of the anti-Trump opposition has led them really to commit every crime, both legally and ethically, that they have accused him of doing. It's the great irony of this, is that I'm not sure that we ever would have learned about those boxes had not the raid on Mar-a-Lago happened. Of course, the Trump during the entire administration, it was full of calls, the 25th Amendment, the guy. For being incapacitated, unable to do his job.
Unstable was usually the term. Unstable,
yeah.
Not incapacitated. No one ever accused Donald Trump of being a dummy. They said he wasn't stable.
You are correct. But the idea that he did not have the mental ability to do his job, that he was a crazy person who could start a nuclear war at any time, and now you actually have someone who truly can't do the job. Who, we have it right here in black and white from, and people are still going to deny it. They're still going to try to pretend that they don't see what everybody in the country can see every day on television.
All right, now I want to switch very quickly. Do you remember the Afghan game, Buzkaji, where the Afghans would run around with a goat's head and play with that for a while on horses?
Yeah.
That's what the Supreme Court did with the Colorado Supreme Court yesterday, and I think it's going to be 9-0. It's so deeply embarrassing to be one of the 4 justices who wrote for that. Do you think that maybe there will be a moment of self-reflection among the Trump derangement syndrome sufferers, that if they were out there applauding this, maybe they ought to rethink whether or not they're allowing their emotions to override their brain?
There's an interesting twist in this lawfare strategy that they have been using against the former president. Many of which involve some things that I think are justified, just in terms of things that have to go through the process. This one clearly was not. It was wrongheaded from the beginning. The fact that it got the treatment that it did at the Supreme Court level was embarrassing. By the way, I was sitting through the entire thing, and I absolutely cracked up at several of the lines that were put out by Alito during some of this cross-examination, essentially, of this Colorado representative. Frankly, I think that this is a moment where Democrats ought to reflect on the fact that there are a number of people out there, a large number of people, in fact, in swing states, who are Trump-Biden voters, meaning they voted for Trump in 2016 and then they switched to Biden in 2020, or they stayed home. Either way, effectively, changing the result in so many of those blue wall states. Those people don't like the fact that you just tried to say you can't make a choice. You can't vote for Trump again, and basically rendering their original vote, is something that they have to be ashamed of. And those are the kinds of people that they need to win again in 2024 in order to have any hope of getting Joe Biden back into the White House. And also, by the way, I think a lot of those same people are the people who react in horror at the kind of things that were rolled out yesterday. Yeah. So I think this lawfare strategy was wrong from the get-go, and is going to continue to come back to haunt the Democrats.
Ben, quick exit. If he doesn't resign as he should, and the Republicans don't impeach as they ought to, will Joe Biden be their nominee? Would they be that nuts?
I feel like this is a moment where that conversation is happening in a way now that it has never happened before, and it's the first moment where I feel like it might result in something actually changing. And especially the person, who I want to know what his opinion of in America at this moment is the former President Barack Obama.
I think Obama, Schumer, and Hakeem Jeffries should do the Goldwater, Rhodes, and Hugh Scott trip down the White House that they did on August 7th, 1974, Richard Nixon resigning August 9th, because this is dangerous, and the whole world saw it. The emperor has no clothes. He actually has no recall. Ben Domenech, good to talk to you. Follow him on X at @BDomenech. See you in the green room soon.